In this video today, we are going to be talking about multiplying and dividing integers. Now, you might not believe it, but this is actually going to be a little bit easier than adding or subtracting integers together because we're going to rely on things that we already know, such as multiplying and dividing. So the first thing that I want us to talk about is the pattern. So what happens when we multiply? So the first rule is what happens when we multiply two positives together. So for instance, if I multiply 3 times 2, I'm going to get 6. Most of the time, right, we've been dealing with integers, right? We've only been dealing with the positive integers. So a positive and a positive should also make a positive. But what else can make a positive? When we have two negatives, right? So when we were talking about our addition problems, and we had a problem that kind of appeared like this, where it was like 2 minus a negative 3. I told you that two negatives make a positive. This ended up just becoming a 2 plus 3, right? So the same thing can work here, right? If I multiply two negatives together, the negatives are going to cancel each other out, leaving you with a positive number. Now, what will happen if only one of them is positive and one of them is negative? The negative will always win out. And again, we saw that when we were adding and subtracting, right? When we said 2 plus negative 3, right? The positive and the negative, right? The negative always won out. So it ended up just giving us a 2 minus 3. So same thing's going to happen here. When I have a negative 3 times a positive 2, it'll give me a negative 6. And depending on if I move the negative around, it's still going to give me a negative 6. So let's go ahead and continue with this. What happens when your number has no sign? Meaning you don't see an addition or subtraction. It usually means it's positive. So we can kind of take that to the bank and understand that if we have a positive 3 times a positive 4, we don't necessarily need to write down the positive symbols. Okay? Sometimes we do put parentheses around numbers to avoid any confusions. So I kind of want to show you a visual about why this works. So you don't need to copy down this slide. You can kind of just pay attention. So why does it work? Again, it's all about direction. So here we have little baby Stephen, and baby Stephen is taking his very first step. So he's starting again at 0. He decides to take 2 paces at a time. So if he takes 2 paces at a time, and he does this for 3 times, right? He's going to jump from to 2 to 4 and then to 6, right? So again, here's that first jump, right? 1, second jump, 2, and then third jump, 3. Each of these, he took 2 paces at a time. And again, he walked all together 6 steps forward, and then he fell down because he's a baby. So what happens if I made the negative, right, 2? So now baby Stephen can also step backwards because, again, he's a little clever guy. So his dad puts him at the 0, but this time he takes 2 steps backwards. So again, what's happening? He takes 2 steps backwards once, he takes 2 steps backward twice, and he takes 2 steps backwards a third time. So again, he ends up on the negative side. So again, this is kind of just putting a visual about why multiplying and multiplying negative numbers are going to result in a negative number. Now, here's also some examples in real life multiplying integers that are not necessarily numbers. Again, you don't need to copy this slide down. So real life example of multiplying integers. What happens if you see people run forward and you decide to play the video normally, right? You're going to see people, right? Here's my little dude just going forward, right? AKA Normally, people are going to run forwards. Well, what would happen if people are running forward, but you put the video in reverse? All right. So again, here's my person. I'm expecting them to go this way, but if I play it in reverse, what's going to happen is it's going to look weird. They're actually going to run in the opposite direction. So again, this can be like multiplying integers, right? Same thing. What happens if you run backwards, right? So again, here's my person who's backwards. I'm staring this way, right? And again, they're running backwards, okay? Oh, actually, let's do it this way. Erase my little dude. Let's actually have him, he's looking this way, right? But he decides he's gonna run backwards, right? Kind of like baby Steven. But I play the video normally. Again, he's gonna go backwards. And last but not least, what happens if you play the video in reverse, right? So a guy is running backwards, but instead of playing it normally, it's gonna look like he's going forward. Right? So again, here's just real life examples of how multiplying integers, we can see them in real life. All right. So multiplying and dividing are very similar to each other. So when we are dividing integers, what we are going to do is it is the same rule as multiplying. So something to kind of remember. Two like signs always make a positive sign, and two unlike signs always make a negative sign. So if you can remember this, this is key, right? Star it, highlight it, underline it in your notes. You will always get a positive. So notice a positive times a positive, you get a positive. A negative and a negative, you still get a positive. But if you have unlike signs, again, one positive, one negative, a negative will always win out. So let's see these in real life, multiplying and dividing. So here's some practice problems. So let's do one multiplying and one dividing together. So let's first focus on the multiplying. I'm going to multiply a 5 and a negative 6. But I'm going to first just start with 5 times 6. If you need your multiplication chart, please take that out now. So I know that 5 times 6, that'll give me 30. This one's positive, while this one's negative. Notice that they are unlike signs, which means the negative will win out. So we want to keep it negative. If I look at the dividing, so again, I'm looking at 12 and 4. So I want to locate 12 on my number line, or not my number line, on my multiplication chart, and I want to look under the 4 column. So how many times does 4 go into 12? Hopefully, what you said was 3. So what do I know? I know 12 is negative. I know that 4 is negative. These are the same signs. So that means that 3 is positive. I do not necessarily need to write the positive symbol with 3. Writing it just the way it is perfectly okay. But if you wanted to, you could say positive 3, so writing it like that. I highly recommend, though, just leaving it like this. So why don't you go ahead, pause the video, try the rest of the multiplying and dividing problems, and see how you do. All right. So if you're coming back from a unpaused video, I'm just going to do one multiplying and one dividing. So I'm going to multiply 10 and 9 together. So again, look at your multiplication chart. 10 and 9 will give you 90. Again, this is negative. This is positive. They are unlike signs. So that must mean this gives me negative 90. Dividing, I got 36 and I got 6. So I know that 6 goes into 36 6 times. Here's a positive number. Here's a negative number. Again, they're unlike signs, so this has to be negative. All right, so if you needed 2 more examples in order to try the last 2, go ahead, pause the video again, try these last two and see how you do. All right, so if you're coming back from the paused video, let's see how you did. You had a 7 and a 5. So when I multiply 7 and 5 together, we should say 35. Again, this is negative, and this is negative. They are the same signs, so that must mean that 35 is positive. I don't have to write anything else down. Last but not least, 88 and 11. I know that 11 goes into 88 8 times. Again, 11 is positive, put a little plus sign. 88 is negative. Again, they are unlike signs, so that must mean that this is negative. All right. If you got those correct, you should be super proud of yourself. If you didn't and you need a little extra help, more help, let's go ahead and try a couple more problems. Oops. Go ahead and take that away. And take that away. So let's go ahead and try a couple more problems. And let's see. Multiplying and a dividing. Pause the video, see how you do. All right, so if we're coming back from a pause video, this is a positive 3, this is a negative 5. So positive and negative. Again, I'm going to focus on the numbers. I know it's going to give me 15. Oops, I just realized that I said positive 3, but wrote down a negative. And I said a negative 5 and I wrote down a positive. So we have positive, negative. They are unlike the same sign. So that must mean they're negative. For 20 and 4, again, this is your positive number. 4 is your negative number. Again, one's positive, one's negative. So they're going to be unlike signs. So it has to be negative. And 4 goes into 20 5 times. All right. Let's try one more to make sure that you got it. All right. So what happens if I say 21 times, all right, let's make it negative 21 times negative 3. And then over here, let's try negative 35 divided by 5. Again, pause the video, see how you do. Okay, so if we're coming back from a pause video, now 21 times 3, maybe you don't know that off the top of your head, which is okay. We're going to multiply 3 and 1 together to give us 3. 3 times 2 together to give us 6. All right, I have a negative number. I have a negative number. They are the same type, so that must mean that this is a positive 63. Over here, I have a negative 35 and a positive 5, and 5 goes into 35 7 times. Because they are unlike the same sign, I know that that's going to be a negative 7. All right. So you're going to need to have extra practice with this potentially, right? If you need any help whatsoever, right, make sure you come and ask me for help. I hope this was helpful, and good luck.